winery. It's a great example of the kind of tasting room that you have here. Nothing like Napa. Got some nice live music happening there.
Oh, it's not tour time. My appointment is here.
How are you, sir?
Good. How are you
Good
doing?
to see you.
Good to see you. Anybody that wants a tour, it's now tour time. I love this part. The tours I give are not the standard winery tour where they're showing you the stainless steel. What I do is I take the people and I use the wines we have in the winery as an educational forum. So we're going to taste new wines and kind of decipher some of the characters of those wines. Since I am a former Napa Valley winemaker and currently a resident of the Suisun Valley, I use these as my main tool, not those silly glass things that most people use. All right, so one of the first wines that we have finished is Sauvignon Blanc. You know, Sauvignon Blanc has two categories of aroma in it. There's one category that is the dry hay, the alfalfa, the kind of green smells. The other category is more green melon, cantaloupe, lemon rind. Typically, Sauvignon Blanc is made exclusively in a tank. With the situation that I have here, I'm tank limited and barrel heavy, which is backwards for most wineries. So I have to get wines out of my tanks to make room for the next stuff coming through. It has a positive effect because it really does help mature the wine. Okay, so let's take a look at this wine.
Quite oily and peachy,
Yeah,
as you said.
I have new Chardonnays in the winery. When you ferment Chardonnays, the majority of it is fermented in a tank. With Chardonnay, we can also ferment in the barrel, and it creates a whole set of flavor characteristics that are different. Well, Clark, what do you think?
Lots of apples.
That's right. Green apples particularly.
Yeah, kind of a Granny Smith.
Mm-hmm. Now we're just going to play and have some fun. We're going to taste 3 Chardonnays at different stages of fermentation in the tank.
Okay.
From one that's almost finished through one that has barely started to crackle. This particular lot of wine is down to about 3 or 4 bricks, so it's about 80-85% through the fermentation. This is probably in the most fun stage for just breakfast consumption. All this cloudiness in the wine is all yeast. At this point,
It's like a mimosa, you know?
Yeah, it's very high in B vitamins at this point. It actually is very nutritious. This is about halfway through fermentation. And this is the stage where most people just go ooh and ah.
I think it would be fun to go back to the tasting room and look at that Sauvignon Blanc and see how the balance of those two flavors shows up. I just really think that's a special wine you make.
And it really does have that balance between the dry hay and the fruitiness of it. It's got good middle palate for a Sauvignon Blanc. Okay, so this is the 09 Sauvignon Blanc.
Most California winemakers say have the guts to make a Sauvignon Blanc this good.
This is a Chardonnay for people that like Chardonnay, devoid of oak, devoid of malolactic. It's tank fermented, neutral barrel aged. It's got maybe 10% new oak in it.
It isn't really lush and oily. Sort of the structure that you get next to the seed of a pit. Wow. It's Mourvedre.
How'd you know that?
Because there's the big sign on the end of the road.
This is a great place for our own variety.
Why do you think that?
This particular little valley is a lot like the other valleys west of here, in the Sonoma Valley and the Napa Valley. The big difference is, like for instance, Napa Valley is approximately 35 miles long. We are approximately 6 miles, so everything is rather compact. The word Suisun is the old Indian word for west wind. So what happens is in the Central Valley, when it warms up and the heat rises, this is the channel or the gap behind us through which the winds go into Sacramento. So it stays dry and stays warm. We have Merlot in a bottle and we have Merlot hanging on the vine. Okay, I always like tasting from the vineyard because you got to balance so many things all at once. Now, these vines are set up east-west, which is not necessarily the right way to do it, but that's what I inherited. But even on the western side here, we make a decision early in the season to pull leaves so that we get light on the vines, knowing that we run a risk of some heat damage. But then you can see on the shade side over here, all these grapes, they're just perfect and they're plump and there's no shrivel at all.
Nice loose clusters. Like a drop of blood, they're beautiful.
Well, that's a sign that the grapes are really getting pretty close when they start releasing the color.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think if you taste across the wines of the property here, you'll find that it's pretty consistent, that they are soft to medium level tannins and universally fine grained tannins. I notice you're not spitting all this wine out like a professional winemaker.
No,
right?
no, no, no.
Right in this area right here, we have Merlot right here. I've got 2 clones of Syrah, Mourvedre, Grenache, and Viognier. We have 5 rows of Counoise. Counoise got a berry the size of ping pong balls. Counoise is one of the Rhone varieties, generally used in small percentages, single-digit percentages, to add fruit to wines. In my opinion, I think Rhone varieties should be blended. Each one of them, you can taste a component. It's like in the Syrah, you've got the color, you've got a lot of structure there, but you've got these harsh, raw tannins and no aroma. The blending with the Grenache particularly is what brings that tannin down. Mourvedre will give you fruit and it gives you mid-palate. The Syrah gets the bell pepper character, but not quite as bad as the Merlot. So we leave the leaves on the Syrah down until about the last 2 weeks, and then we'll come in and pull the leaves off. Syrah is usually noted for being pretty strong in the color, but the nature of the tannin is just, they're very smooth.
Maybe that's a signature of Suisun, that this heavy clay soil seems to be related to that.
We've been looking at all these Rhone varieties, and in a sense, they all have kind of big berries and big clusters, and they're kind of roundish or teardrop shaped. Now when we look at the Cabernet, we've got a lot smaller berries, a lot more elongated clusters. They still can be densely packed, but on average, your Cabernet is never going to produce as much as your Rhones. This is our new patch of Petite Syrah. It's 2 acres. Petite Syrahs do very well in this valley. They really get that blueberry character in them. These grapes do have a very, very substantial tannin in them, typical of the variety, but it's not that huge, overwrought, aggressive type of tannin. It's really pretty good.
They're just loaded with flavor.